Back with another one, y'all. Bad News Brown. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between a democracy and a republic. And this is, of course, in light of the recent election. And as you know, the republic won. The Republicans, the republic beat the democracy. So I want to explain a little bit in detail what exactly that means and what it means moving forward. Now, there's pros and cons to both sides. And this is what I want to get into because traditionally, people that look like me, black, African American, we've been told to sway to the left. Now, let me explain. Matter of fact, let me speak more into the republic first, being that the Republicans won. And that's more important. So, here we go. Now, when I think of republic, you need to think of law and order. So when you think of Republican, think law and order, rule of law. The republic, meaning the Constitution. So the Constitution is the ultimate law, legal document in this country. So everything should go back to the Constitution. Now, this is good and bad because not only the Constitution is the most respectable document, supposedly, but that's the same Constitution that also said we was 3/5 of a human being. So traditionally, the law has not been on the side of the African American. It's been actually being in a lot of instances used against the African American. But let me go back for a minute and just speak more about the republic as a whole and what this means. So, as I mentioned, it's going to be a lot of law and order. And this is good and bad. So, they about to start tightening the grips on a lot of things when it comes to crimes. I'll say that. So, if you a criminal, a thief, they ain't probably not going to be playing with y'all anymore. They done turned up the dial. Because from Trump speeches, you can already tell. And again, there's some very legitimate reasons to squeeze the clamp, especially when it comes to issues such as immigration, sex trafficking, especially of minors in particular, and things such as that. So it's definitely no problem with him draining the swamp, as he'll put it. But at the same time, it can be used against you. And now I want to go back because traditionally the law was used against us. But before I even go a little further, I want to kind of explain a little bit about the democracy. Like, what does democracy mean? So let's get it straight. The republic means the republic, meaning law and order, meaning the Constitution. So when you think of democracy, you need to think of the majority rules, the democracy. Now, Democrat. Now, the whole premise of democracy is the majority rule. So, in other words, whatever the majority of people want to roll with, that's what we going to roll with, regardless of the law. And that's good or bad because, especially for people that look like me, again, the law was against us. Slavery used to be legal. So, again, the law was against us. So, at that time, it was good to organize under the Democratic banner because another thing about Democratic is the majority rule, but also when you think of it, think of the mob mentality, and that also is good and bad. So, when I want to get ahead of myself, but speaking when the law was being used against us, we became part of the mob mentality to fight back. So, the mob mentality can be interpreted as one of the cons of the democracy and the majority rule thought process. Because the majority, that don't necessarily mean it's good. If the majority of people in the room is sick, rapists, pedos, you mean what they say go? I don't think so. So just because the majority of people agree on something don't make it right. So that's where the whole balance come into play. Now, traditionally, we have had to run up under the Democrats to become that mob mentality as a group to change the racist laws, as I'll put it. But fast forward, things appear to be shifting because it seems like now the mob mentality is not in our interest. And let me explain a little further. Now it's just like I mentioned, it's kind of going back if you got 10 people in a room and they all weird, as I'm gonna put it, that mean what they say go no. So, and another thing, back then, and I'm all over the place a little bit, y'all, but even then the democracy was against us because been plenty of examples of brothers in jail, and you got the mob, the lynch mob. That's where the word come from. And when I say mob, I ain't talking about the a crew of cats out here pushing the line on some street stuff, saying we mobbing. I ain't talking about that. But that's where that word comes from. Mob, a group of people. Now, traditionally, that group of people was against people like me and you. So when you heard that word mob, you actually had to be on your toes. You understand? Because that's when they was coming to lynch you. So that's the drawback of the mob mentality. And fast forward to today, you could find yourself at a protest or anywhere not knowing really why you really there. Think you there for one reason, you're not there for another reason. But that's a little bit about the pros and cons to the democracy and the republic. So the republic just won. Now, in my opinion, there's about to be a lot more emphasis on the rule of law, as the aforementioned issues they was talking about during the campaign when it comes to immigration and him draining the swamp, among other things. So not only that, but just for the common citizen, like I mentioned earlier, as far as doing certain crimes, it's going to be harder for you to stick and move. It's going to be harder for you to operate under the table. A lot of stuff where they probably wasn't tripping on, they're going to be tripping on. And the stuff that they already was tripping on, the penalties probably going to be a lot more harsher, especially when it comes to the petty thefts and the bipping and all that. They really about to start rounding you up. So that's the drawback of law. So you kind of got what you wanted in one respect, but now that, hey, stuff is about to be quote unquote cleaned up, don't fall prey. I guess that's how I'm gonna put it. So I just really want to just kind of outline the pros and cons of both sides and kind of give you a proper understanding of what it means. So again, the republic just beat the democracy, meaning the Republicans just beat the Democrats. Now, Republican means rule of law, Constitution. Like, this is the law. So it is what it is. Forget how you feel, all that. This is the law. Democracy, majority rules. Mob mentality, kind of like whichever popular, the status quo. Just like a while ago, the status quo was black rights. Now you fast forward, it's LGBT rights. You see the pattern? It's always somebody. But that's a whole different video. But get where I'm going with that. So you got to think, again, there's pros and cons to both. And again, it's two sides of the same coin. So as a African American or black or whatever, traditionally we didn't had our share of run-ins with both sides. I'll put it like that. We basically experienced oppression and racism from both sides. Back in the day with the Republic, because the laws was twisted again, like I said, slavery was legal. So that wasn't in our interest. And we had to become part of the majority rule mob sway side with the whole protesting on to the civil rights and all that. So it was kind of like in our interest to be Democrat. But now the way things is going, I ain't saying is time to sway back to law and order side, because there's a teetering. Now me personally, I'm liberal on certain issues and conservative on others. That's just me personally, but it's just something for y'all to think about, and kind of this is what this means now. Again, the Republicans won. and you can position yourself to profit. And it ain't about that, but actually, prosper in these times. Although you need to position yourself to prosper in any time, but Republicans do promote wealth, promotes ownership. This is why majority of Republicans is rich, because it favors the rich, meaning it unlocks doors. It gives you benefits when you're trying to be rich. And this is at face value, where traditionally the Democrats been, they say for the poor. I'm not necessarily, I don't know what that means no more. I thought it meant helping the poor not be poor. So I don't know. Or do it means if you got to be poor to get help from us? I don't know. Y'all tell me what y'all think though, man. Bad News Brown breaking it down. I'm definitely gonna be back at y'all speaking more about this, because there is a lot more when it comes to this. But in general, that's the difference from a democracy and a republic. In the republic, just one rule of law that's coming. It's already here. And it can work for you, work for us in some instances, and it can work against us, because you don't want things to become a police state. You understand? Just under the guise of keeping law and order, because we got to crack down on this and crack down on that, and so it can easily get out of hand and work against you, just like the left can too. You understand?